Today on COVID-19 Local Impact, promising results from the Peterborough Public Health Unit, but it's not time to relax yet.
I'm certainly not going to let down our guard. We're always concerned about, what are we missing?
A reprieve for grocery store employees.
They've been working day and night for weeks.
And a change to regulations when preparing a will. Hello and welcome to COVID-19 Local Impact. I'm Dan Malta from the Your TV Peterborough studios. The curve is beginning to flatten in Peterborough, but as Dr. Rosanna Salvatierra details in her address from the Peterborough Public Health Unit, now is not the time to relax on safety measures.
I'll start with an update. Our current case count as of 4 p.m. last night is 45. So that, you will note, is only 4 additional cases since Friday, which is a significant slowing of our rate of increase over the past couple of weeks. Of those 45 cases, 3 are the result of local transmission. So that's about 7% of our cases where we have not been able to identify either a travel link or an exposure link. 10 of our cases are now resolved. If we, according to the Ministry of Health's data, which they have shared, our rate per 100,000 is 28, which is lower than the provincial case rate of 31.8, or almost 32 per 100,000. The number of people tested so far in Peterborough, we're just over 1,000. So 1,055 people have been tested. Of those, 750 have been confirmed negative. And we still have about 260 under investigation. We're fine with swabs. We have 270 swabs on hand going into the rest of this week and the long weekend. As far as outbreaks are concerned, we have no new outbreaks to report in any of our long-term care homes or group homes. There are still the 2 outbreaks, the one at St. Joseph's at Fleming and the one at Riverview Manor, and these outbreaks are being contained. There are no deaths in Peterborough from COVID-19 yet. So as far as new public health measures coming into effect this week, the province is providing us with increased resources to support more aggressive contact tracing, and we are exploring whether or not this will be needed here in Peterborough. I'd like to spend a few moments today just to clarify the advice on wearing masks by members of the public. There's been a lot in the media over the last few days. And first of all, I want to emphasize that to prevent the transmission of COVID-19, here's what we know is proven. Staying at home as much as possible, physical distancing, washing our hands, protecting the most vulnerable from infection and exposure to others, and covering our cough with tissues or a sleeve. It is critical that these measures continue, and I'm certainly heartened by the results I've shared with you today. It appears that Peterborough residents are doing a very good job at flattening the curve and slowing the spread of COVID-19. So thank you, and we need to keep up this good work. I also want to remind the public that healthcare workers need medical masks, including surgical, medical procedure masks, and respirators such as N95 masks. It is extremely important that we reserve the supply of medical masks for healthcare workers where it is urgently needed for medical procedures and to care for people who have COVID-19. Wearing a non-medical mask or a face covering when out in the community has not been proven to protect the person wearing it. However, it can be an additional measure that one can take to protect others. So you can sort of think of face coverings as source protection. They are additional measures that are meant to prevent the spread from you to others. Wearing a non-medical mask is another way to cover your mouth and your nose to prevent your respiratory droplets from contaminating others or from landing on surfaces. So just like the recommendation not to cough into your hands and instead to cover your cough with a tissue or a sleeve, the mask can reduce the chance that others are coming into contact with your respiratory droplets. Masks may also stop you from touching your nose and your mouth. If you choose to use a face covering, you must wash your hands immediately before putting it on and immediately after taking it off, in addition to practicing good hand hygiene while wearing it. It should fit well, and you should not share it with others. Face masks can be contaminated on the outside or when touched by your hands. So when wearing a mask, please take the following precautions to protect yourself. Put it directly in the washing machine or into a bag that can be emptied into the washing machine and then disposed of. And launder these cloth masks with other items using a hot cycle and making sure that they're dried thoroughly. Please do not leave discarded masks in shopping carts or on the ground where they can become a hazard for others. So I will now turn it back to Brittany Cadence for further comments. Thank you.
In addition to her address, Dr. Salvatierra answered a question regarding how much time needs to elapse without new cases before the COVID-19 outbreak can be considered over.
We use 2 incubation periods with no new cases before we declare an outbreak over. And that means, for example, when we had mumps here a couple of years ago in one of our schools, it meant that we waited a long time before we had the confidence to say that outbreak was over, and we could return to normal. So similarly for COVID, we know the incubation period is 14 days. So 14 days times 2 is 28 days. That's 4 weeks. And that's how long you would have to go with no cases before you could actually, I think with any confidence, declare that the outbreak is over.
Mayor of Peterborough, Diane Therrien, says there are additional closures and financial impacts at the local level, even though today's public health unit address seemed positive.
As we heard from the medical officer of health today on Wednesday, April 8th, our cases are at 45 in the area that the health unit covers. So that's good. It sort of seems to be slowing, which means that the precautions that we've been taking both at the city and county have been hopefully working. And so it's tempting for people to hear those numbers and think, things are okay. There might be a temptation to revert back to normal behavior, but we need people to continue kind of holding the line on what we've been doing for the last almost month now, going into again summer and the nicer weather. So we know that Beaver Mead Campground and all seasonal campgrounds across the province have been ordered to remain closed. And so, and again, along with other park facilities and anywhere that people can congregate. Going forward, the big challenge as well is going to be around finances and the budget, because we're all, individuals are dealing with this, and that's why we passed the tax exemption measures. But then that impacts our budget because we don't have that money coming in. And then it's the same thing with the provincial and federal governments. They're rolling out these measures, but there's individuals and businesses that aren't able to pay their taxes. So it's going to be this, cascading effect going forward of how we're going to, recover financially, not just as the city, as a municipality, but our business community as well. But we have, a task force coming into play that's looking at those short, medium, and long-term measures for recovery. So that's something that is definitely a priority as we kind of hold the line again on what we're doing in terms of municipal operations, but then also planning for how we're going to climb back out of this on the other side.
Something for everyone to take note of ahead of the long weekend. Premier Doug Ford announced the closure of stores, pharmacies, and other essential services for Friday and Sunday to give frontline workers a much-needed break.
With a long weekend ahead of us, I have an important message for our essential workers. We've been listening to business owners and employees. The truth is that everyone working in our grocery stores and pharmacies, our truck drivers, and those working the line, they've been working day and night for weeks to keep the food and medicine we need on the shelves. And one way we're saying thank you is making sure they have this Friday and Sunday off. They deserve a break and some quality time with their families. Stores will be open Thursday, Saturday, and of course, again, Monday onwards. Let's give our workers a break.
MPP David Piccini announced yesterday that Northumberland County will receive almost $1.4 million to help the most vulnerable in the community. Your TV's Mark Rockburn caught up with the MPP to find out more on the announcement.
So as a part of the government's $200 million commitment to support the vulnerable in our community, I think this is an important allocation locally of 1.4 million, which is going to support things like food bank, sheltering, and any other supports at the municipal level, allocation of food for those who, we know locally there's a number of food banks that put on suppers, lunches. It's to support with things like that. And as a part of that 200 million commitment, it was critical for us to ensure that we get a significant portion into Northumberland County. I was really pleased to see the overall amount and to work with Minister Smith on that allocation locally. Again, for a lot of people who don't know this, the province transfers that funding through our lower tiers. So that's through the county and through our municipalities. And again, that will be used to support things like food banks, sheltering, things of that nature. And it's ultimately decided at our lower tier. The rationale behind that is I work closely with our lower tier municipalities. Of course, we have 7 in Northumberland County. The needs vary from Port Hope to Brighton up to Campbellford and Trent Hills. So really getting that grassroots sense of how to support those in need at a very, very local level.
Great move yesterday by the province of Ontario, specifically the Premier of Ontario, to ensure that many little children will be very happy this Sunday.
Yeah, I know. When we talk about the essential services list, I've been working with a lot of our local businesses. As the Premier said, it's a living list that responds to the needs, but a critical announcement. A lot of young constituents voiced to me is, what about the Easter Bunny? They weren't sure. So the Premier issued an executive order yesterday that the Easter Bunny will be made an essential service, which is a much needed relief for many young residents of Northumberland, Peterborough South. And I'm glad it's had a more lighthearted news announcement in these trying times. It's always nice to be able to have a brief moment of levity, and that was nice.
Talk about the job your Premier has done.
I've been exceptionally proud of the leadership of our Premier. We've been decisive. We've led the province when it comes to a number of significant measures, from state of emergency to essential services to additional calls. The Premier's been instrumental behind the scenes. The Premier at every step has been a team player, a consensus builder, has led by example, and has worked collaboratively. And I think in trying times, that's what Ontarians want to see: strong, decisive leadership. That not that there was ever any doubt, but if there for the few who there were, I've received remarkable feedback, even from staunch campaigners on.
Have you thought about updating your will during the COVID-19 pandemic? Your TV's Mary Tendashat speaks with Joe Grant, a lawyer from LLF Lawyers in Peterborough. And he says the way they are conducting business has changed due to the coronavirus. He adds more people are updating their wills than normal.
Yeah, and that's one of the areas where we're seeing an increase in people looking to have wills prepared, especially this time of year. It's generally a slower time, a higher volume time is usually Christmas, but we've seen a lot of people, they're trying to get their affairs in order because understandably they're concerned. We certainly do them. We're still able to draft them. The meetings can be done remotely. Signing requirements, though, they still require a physical presence to see people, to have them witnessed. In Ontario, in order for a will to be valid, unless it's handwritten, it has to have 2 independent witnesses, meaning witnesses who aren't actually named in the will as a beneficiary or an estate trustee. So you have to get creative that way. Just because it says you have to witness them doesn't mean you have to be in the same room. We've done a couple where the clients have been in the parking lot in their cars. They've signed them and delivered them inside, and we can witness them that way.
Grant says he has also seen a change when it comes to real estate law. Clients are no longer meeting face-to-face to sign documents and hand over keys.
Physically getting the documents back to us, because we do need originals. They will drive or courier, and those systems are still, that infrastructure is still in place, fortunately. And then I can commission stuff remotely, and then we're able to sign and register and transfer the documents electronically between the lawyers. The keys, usually it's either a lockbox, say, at the place where a code is given and people can get the keys that way, or arranging for some sort of way for the real estate agent to deliver the keys at an appropriate distance to the client, of course.
In regards to child custody cases, lawyer Joe Grant says there has been an increase in volume of COVID-related questions.
You'll have two families, you'll have the child going back and forth between the two, and then you have one family that thinks, or one ex-partner who thinks the other one's not doing enough to protect their child, and could be causing them to come in contact with the virus and bringing it back. So that's a whole other questions that we haven't necessarily dealt with a virus in family law. So those are coming up for sure.
In normal circumstances, the court system is backlogged with cases waiting months to appear before the court. We asked lawyer Joe Grant whether the courts may be able to clear some of this backlog during the pandemic.
If I had to guess, I would think it would be even more backed up. I mean, you've got so many things that are just not going ahead, and presumably most of them are still going to require the court's attention once we get through all this and they started seeing people. Tribunals, for example, for landlord-tenant applications and stuff, there's still going to be a huge backlog because a lot of the stuff isn't being heard, especially the evictions that have to do with non-payment of rent. When it opens up after 2 or 3 months, there's going to be a huge backlog there. So how they're going to get through that, and again, are they going to move to more virtual hearings and that sort of thing? It's possible.
Since the interview, the provincial government has changed the requirement for witnesses signing a will. Pursuant to the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act, they are now permitting virtual signings of wills, for example, over a video conference, provided one of the witnesses is a lawyer or paralegal. As COVID-19 local impact continues on your TV, you'll hear from the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. Welcome back to COVID-19 Local Impact. I'm Dan Malta. Justin Trudeau announced $847 a week per employee for companies affected by the COVID-19 pandemic and urges those companies to hire their employees back.
If your company or organization has been impacted by COVID-19, the government will give you up to $847 a week per employee. And as we've said before, this subsidy will be retroactive to March 15th. Our government understands that not all businesses operate the same way, and that's why we're making changes to include as many of you as possible. We will keep listening, but we really hope you will use this help from your country and from your fellow citizens to rehire and pay your workers. If our economy is to get through this, we need businesses to survive and workers to get paid. Job numbers for March will be out tomorrow, and it's going to be a hard day for the country. We're facing a unique challenge, but I know that if we pull together, our economy will come roaring back after this crisis.
With major fundraisers being postponed or canceled, there is still a great need for Easter Seals to provide funding to families for mobility equipment. With this in mind, Easter Seals launched the 21 Times Challenge.
What Easter Seals is striving to do right now, with appropriate timing is to deliver the message that these families still have ongoing needs. And we all have had a unique situation where we've experienced isolation firsthand. And it's sort of an interesting thing to consider that this is how our kids feel a lot of the time, is that they feel isolated. And a lot of what we do is provide accessibility and acceptance to them. And the trouble that the families are struggling with right now is the application of continued support for equipment. And that's to provide mobility to these kids in their homes. So the families are now applying for equipment that makes their home more accessible to their kids. So those equipment requests are still coming in from the families, and Easter Seals needs to come up with a creative way to continue fundraising, because we can't do it in event-based fundraising drives like we typically would. So what we're coming up with now is a new online campaign, and we were really sensitive to the timing of it. Is it too soon? Is it appropriate? When is it a good idea? And how long can our families wait? So we are excited to be launching a campaign this week. It's a campaign that encourages people to do 21 times of anything. So have some fun with it, get creative, and do something 21 times, and post yourself online doing 21 push-ups or 21 jumping jacks or 21. One of my colleagues took 21 steps into Lake Simcoe this morning, and basically pledge yourself $21 on the Easter Seals website, and then challenge 3 other people to do the same. So it's a fun way to continue to support our families, get people actively involved, and obviously under the safe guidelines that have been provided to us, but to stay active and to remember that there are still ways to help, and that $21 does make a difference. And it's a simple thing that we're asking people to do. Take the time, do something 21 times, be silly, have fun sharing it, and then go onto the website and donate $21 to Easter Seals Kids. And we really do look forward to seeing some of that success on a local level and on a society-wide level. And the reason it's 21 is because we are official partners with Century 21. So they're going to be sort of our partner with this, in that they chose Easter Seals Ontario as one of their charities of choice. So we have this sort of unwritten relationship with Century 21 that we're hoping to really launch this with their support. So that's where the name C21 Times comes from.
Hi everybody, Charlene here. I'm doing the 21 times challenge for Easter Seal Kids. Our whole province is on pause. All of our events are on pause, but you know what? Our Easter Seal Kids still need. So we've got a great challenge going 21 times for Easter Seal Kids. And after I do the challenge, you can go to our website and just donate $21 for Easter Seal Kids. So everybody knows I love our kids and I do anything for them. Well, this is beyond. I'm actually going into Lake Simcoe, 21 steps for our Easter Seal Kids. Here I go.
I know we were all really excited to spend telethon together. I miss you. I look forward to seeing you in September, and I'm really excited that the potential of telethon could be a fall event. Maybe this is something that we could do going forward.
In times of crisis, people turn to the Bible for comfort and guidance. Executive Director of Northumberland Youth Unlimited, Tony Posmus, passes along a few scripture readings that may help you during these times.
There's actually, one verse in the Bible that's been resonating with me for the past couple of weeks. That has really helped me is from Philippians 4, verse 5-7. It says, "Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus."
At this time, is there any scriptures or passages from the Bible? I know you said one that you was physically touched by. Is there any other ones that you can pass along to individuals now that, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, that people could quickly look through their Bible?
Yeah, it's there's lots of scriptures that really stick out. I would say the book of Psalms is just an amazing book in the Bible. It's pretty much right in the middle of your Bible, and it's really just filled with songs and prayers, and some of it is amazing, like just King David rejoicing of all the things that God has done for him. The Israelites rejoicing of all the things that God has done for them, and then a lot of the Psalms are also these cries for help, and these like, where are you, God, in this situation? And I think there's some rawness there that is really helpful for us in times of need. And I even think, Psalm 23 is one of those Psalms that, we often hear at funerals. And I think it's just one of those things that, the Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. And even in the midst of not feeling like I do, even in the midst of feeling, stressed out and concerned and worried, the Lord is still my shepherd and I still have all that I need. And even just the second verse, he lets me rest in green meadows. He leads me beside peaceful streams. He renews my strength. And I think some of those Psalms are really, really important for us to read through. And so I would even say, if someone's watching now and just kind of trying to figure out, okay, where should I read in the Bible? I would say, go to the book of Psalms and start reading some of the rawness of some of the authors of the book of Psalms, and start to see how even there in the middle of crisis and strife.
A quick reminder, Your TV will be airing Easter Mass this Sunday live at 11 a.m. from the Cathedral of St. Peter in Chains. The Cobourg and District Sport Hall of Fame has announced their second annual induction ceremony has been postponed. Gord Brooks, Neil Kane, Dr. Reverend Kevin Fast, Margaret Matthews, Dan Milligan, Fred Simpson, Ken Petrie, and Clark Somerville were to be enshrined on Saturday, June 20th. The new date of the ceremony is Saturday, September 12th. That's the show for today. For Your TV, I'm Dan Malta, and we'll leave you with this. Washboard Hank singing, "There's No Place Like Home."